You know, tulips are the flower of Herman Miller. Because
good.
we're in Michigan.
Thank you for that wonderful
Hi.
communication.
Welcome to the Eames Institute of Infinite Curiosity. We're so glad to have you here. And then also it's so great to welcome the Knoll team too, and so exciting, this new chapter, Miller Knoll, and we're just excited to share what we're doing up here at the Eames Institute. What could be done here? We have the Eames office in Los Angeles, which produces the product and works with Herman Miller. We also have the Eames Foundation, if any of you have been to the Eames house, which takes care of the house. But what we wanted to create here is how Ray and Charles worked. How did they solve their problems? And the core of it comes from the collection that came from their office, which you'll hear us refer to as 901 Washington Boulevard. That was their office in Venice, California. May I say, that was a very different kind of Venice, California when they had it. It was a little more rugged. And that's where they had their shop. They could test out ideas, iterate them. One of the things you'll hear us talk about is one thing they realized early on is how something is made influences design. So they had to make both the prototypes and the machines that made the prototypes before shipping it off to Herman Miller, who could scale it up from 5,000 to 100,000. What I love is I've been doing this for about 25 years, working with the archival material, usually working with museums that want to do an exhibit. They might borrow 5 things, they might borrow 400 things. But this is now a way that we can share some key lessons of how Ray and Charles worked. The lessons are about the act of making, problem solving, communication with their graphics, and others that we'll share on the tour. So we just launched 2 months ago. And this is actually a very special treat that you have here because we are not open to the public. We are actually about to be doing a whole retro fitting here. And so this is an opportunity before we take all the material out and bring it back. So this is just a special treat. I want you to each take a strip of paper. There's a question on it. There's 9 different questions. And you may be like, what the heck is she asking here? But the point is, I want these lessons to get embedded with you. I want you to think about the work that you do and think about sustainability or something that you want to learn. And so if you don't understand, on the tour, ask me. And then I will be happily give you an example from Ray and Charles and an example from me.
What's your question, Tracy?
That is so perfect for you.
What does it say? Very curious. What is an object that you would improve upon? Okay, you do that every day.
Everything here was word of mouth. That's how people found us. It was very sotto voce. So a couple of things that I love about the structures that were created before we go inside the building. He made a gap between the two buildings there. It faces east, so you see the sun and the moon rising. Another detail is the fact that this can always stay green. Actually, we don't water it anymore during the drought, but the concept was to always have a green area, even as this area got brown, so that grandchildren and dogs could play. These are my mother's gates and her artwork that you see around here. My mother did beautiful designs herself, but never worried about self-promotion, just really made it for herself here out of a curiosity. I had a mother who gave me power tools for my birthday because I am 3rd-generation sculptor on my other side. My grandfather was a bronze sculptor. I welded and worked in my parents' studio. And then when she became allergic, we ended up doing her designs by laser cutting. And we could laser cut them in town and then make these gates, and we could scale them up different ways. So as I said, each of the rooms that we walk through are used in different ways. And so what I call this the unification project, which is we're bringing all the prototypes together. And I know like Cecilia and John and Robert and Gary have seen different versions over the years. What we're doing here is starting to tell what was my mother's favorite part of the story, which is Ray and Charles' iterative process. It means not just that the museum has a beautiful home run on display, but how they got there and how hands-on my grandparents were. I mean, it's not like by accident some of these things happen. What I love to start with is these images here of 3-legged chairs. So Ray and Charles, when they first did the molded plywood sculpture, the molded plywood chair, and so when you hear these stories, you can visit the website and we go into deeper detail there. So I hope this just is a way for you to learn more and want to learn more. What I love about this is when Ray and Charles were first designing molded plywood chairs, like that's why Ray and Charles moved to Los Angeles, was to developed the idea that he and Arrow had won. They thought it was a really stable chair, right? 3 legs on the ground, right? People don't know how to get out of a 3-legged chair. They fall. And it doesn't matter if you put the 1 leg in front or the 2 legs in front, it doesn't work. But this is what Ray and Charles felt. That's just a misconception. You don't teach people how to get out of a chair. You just work with how they get out of a chair. And so as a result, they recobbled it together and then made it 4 legs. So actually, not as many of these chairs still exist. They got recobbled together in the next version. Over here, what we're starting to gather is, I know people think plastic, fiberglass. It actually wasn't very strong materials when they were first formed. It would break easily. So Ray and Charles, you know, when they worked on something, they immediately wanted to work in the material itself to see how it was doing. It wasn't working, so that's why they went to the wire rod. And then by the time they figured out the wire rod, then the plastic and the fiberglass was working. So that's why you sometimes see all these different materials getting worked on at once. I love the wire rod because they're shopping carts. It's exactly what the technology for shopping. So what I love with Ray and Charles, it's not like they invented the wheel. They saw what wheels were out there and adapted them to what they wanted to do. Another important piece about this, and this really connects to the land that we have outside, and this is where I want more connections doing indoor outdoors, is they realized each material had a unique something it could do that the other ones couldn't. Fiberglass and plastic, you can cast the shock mounts. That's one less step of fabrication, which is better for the environment. Right. So it's those little nuances. I love things like this. You hear that line, make the best for the most for the least. Well, this is how you do it. You have a jig that can adjust the height and the angle. You sit in it, everyone sits in it and see what works for the most people. So just because, as Charles said, you know how a rainbow works doesn't take away from the magic. After my 25 years of doing this, it's still magical. I think another thing about special, what you've seen in this room, is this is 3D printing before 3D printing. And so one thing I like to share is look at all the materiality. There's a weight, there's a heft, there's an edge that's very important that only happens when you work in that material. So 3D printing is great, but you also have to work in the material. Yes, and he would also make sculptures that played music. Yeah, exactly. Harry and Charles. They knew each other. But he did like sculpture, musical sculptures, both of them, yeah. This is what he was at. It's a cultural exchange with Moscow, where Ray and Charles wanted to show the similarities between our cultures, not our differences. The way they put it is our cities look much the same at night. And so they did this 7-screen slideshow, 7 minutes long, but they didn't have enough time to take the pictures.
What do you see? I
don't see anything yet.
And so for
see,
some
Bailey?
people, it helps.
What are you supposed to see?
So the title Mathematica
Oh, the word.
Oh, yeah.
is
yeah,
there.
Right there. Yeah. I see it now.
Right there. Mathematica, a world of
That's so cool.
the graphic that says think. That is the IBM pavilion at the World's Fair, and they have Mathematica below the exhibit. There was a third set by that point, and they're explaining that computers are just helping us say. So my family went and did a deep dive, and out of 750,000 pictures, picked these 100. Herman Miller helped us produce 18 sets that went around the world. That's poetry on the right, and that is such a sweet ellipse. See, Pringles should have done that for nesting chips. Don't you think? And then even as it blows. But yeah, everyone, you can even do a Mobius strip bubble.
What are the bubbles?
The bubbles, it's a different kind of bubble.
Oh.
You can have a single-sided one. And this is just Dawn liquid. It's not magic. Liquid. But yeah, come on.
That is an amazing story. Really? Oh my god, I love it. Oh, sorry, I need a few more.
So it's very cold. It stays
Oh.
What you see here, obviously, is 26 acres. It's Lucia's property. Lisa lived here. We'll see some of Lucia's artwork down at the barn. The barn was built first of the two structures. So I'll just point out that most of the sculpture you see is Lucia's work, but this one is what
and they would pick me up in her Jaguar at LAX and scoot me over to 901 the office, and what was so amazing is, usually they'd be finishing up a project, but it might be lunchtime or something. And so we ended up going over and having borscht, and we're coming back. I'm about 8. This is also when you could travel at 8 on the plane. And so we're coming back to the office. It was a couple blocks away. And Charles said, "What'd you think of dinner?" And I said, "I didn't like it very much. Without missing a beat." He said, "How would you have done things differently?" Which means, if you're going to complain about something, better have some alternatives. I didn't even know it was a borscht. So Charles explains to me it's onion and potatoes and beets, and I could have made mashed potatoes. And then we had a whole theory about why did the chef make borscht, and it might be because they had someone in the family that loved it. Maybe it was at the makers, the farmers market that day. But what was great is it was teaching me constraints and working within constraints without saying such. But it also, I felt empowered, I felt heard, I felt like I could complain. But it's also a valuable lesson of always thinking about how to improve upon something. And so I impart this to all of you. I'm still teaching some of my children this. But what's also fun is, this is a story that when the exhibit was at Oakland, we had the docents come up here so I could share some of these stories and they could share when they gave tours. And so when I went during the show, one of the docents came up to me. She said, "Your story worked." And I'm like, wondering, which story? And then, I have a few stories. So she said, the borscht story. And I said, "Great, how?" She said, "My grandchildren hated my salads. So the next time they complained, I said, how would you do it differently?" And it turns out it was the mushrooms. So what it was is she said, "How would you do it differently?" And then they said they didn't like the mushrooms. She's like, "Well, what else do you want in there?" And then now they make the salads together. Everyone makes the salad that they want, and they eat salads together. So they eat the whole salad. But I said, so all of these stories that you hear today, I hope you share them. I hope you inform people. I think what's so special is Ray and Charles were human beings. They were grandparents. They were designers. They lived their life. It was seamless, the personal to the work. But I think it's their generosity of spirit. That's just a little bit I want to share with all of you and have you carry forward. And it's just been a real joy to spend time with you all today.
Thank you.
Ready? Wait, let's start with the quote on the outside. Develop a curiosity. Look at things as though for the first time. Think of things in relation to each other. Always think of the next larger thing.
Eames Institute of Infinitive Curiosity.
This is beautiful.
Stunning, you all.
This is Lauren.
Lauren!
Oh my gosh.
Lauren?
Tell me if we captured this.
A home for curious problem solvers.
What are the boundaries of design? What are the boundaries of problems?
So cute. There's something. There's a bag in there.
There's something. That's how you
There's a bag.
Slide it out.
Eames Institution Art Collection, limited edition portfolio of silk screen prints. Oh, it's the little.
You should look at the mountains.
What is this? Oh, it's a pin.
Pass it.
Joe.
This one's heavy. It's for your desk. Blocks that look like this.
It says, toys are really not as innocent as they look. Toys and games are the preludes to serious ideas. That's awesome.
That's gorgeous.
And then you can put this. This is the tower.
Okay.
Oh, you're kidding.
Look at that.
Make your own home.
Can we give a huge hand to our hosts? I mean, just the day that you played for us, the ideas that you've instilled, and we've been talking as a collective group quite a bit as we're merging these two companies, and quite honestly, sometimes getting distracted on all the things that we need to do to create a merger, that we lead with design. And we get to speak about it, live in it, speak about designers. And I think you really brought us back to that today, and we're just so incredibly thankful. Thankful.
It's been a joy and a pleasure, but it's also, I get to work with incredible individuals too, who are bringing this out in me, and that's what's really fun too. And I don't take this for granted. I didn't know there was a job like this. So it's evolving and iterating as we go. And so I'm just so excited to see the future of design through the Institute.
You look scared. You're so